And it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But I do think that Foosley is a dark horse. I think she has potential to go deep in the event if she gets some breaks, she gets some openings that she knows. I think she could actually be a dark horse to go into like the semifinals of the champions bracket. Let's start by looking at the games. We're going to start by looking at the games game by game from this event that just occurred, day one of the Pogchamps tournament. This was the first match we played. So we'll start with game one, which was between Foosley and erobb221. All right, so a reaction to the last interview. I'll get to that once I go through the games. I don't want to get into that at the start, but I won't play music because I want to post this onto YouTube. Okay, so actually, sorry, by the way, you guys, the VODs of the actual event, they will be on YouTube ASAP as soon as possible. So don't worry, you can go to YouTube and you will be able to watch it. All right, you guys, on that note, let's start with the games. Let's start with the game between Foosley and erobb or erobb. I'll just use their streamer names to be very clear. So what I'm going to say about these games is that I've done a little bit of training with some of the players. I've not had time to help everybody. Obviously, I've had limited time. I was playing in this Magnus Carlsen event, Lindoris Abbey, and I've tried to squeeze in lessons here and there as much as I can, but I have not been able to give everybody a lesson, unfortunately. So I just want to mention that as well. All right, so will I prepare here for black? You mean, will I prepare Foosley for a second game? I don't think I'm going to have a choice. I mean, I think certain people are definitely going to want training. Tomorrow I'll be helping Ludwig. I think I will be helping VoyBoy at some point down the road as well. So those are two people I will be helping. I will be helping Chocobars as well. And then maybe I might do something with, who's the fourth one? There's one other guy, one other person that I might be doing a little bit of training with. So Papa Plata, I should say. I don't know who he's training with. If XUC wants to do something, I will absolutely find time. I don't care if it means I have to wake up in the middle of the night. I will find time. So that's what I will say in regards to the training. I mean, I feel like what XUC needs to do is he needs to clear his head and just relax and play chess without the chat tilting him, and just take a deep breath. And if he does that, I think he has a chance to recover and be in it. But I mean, I think the fact that his chat is just tilting the shit out of him, pardon my French, is definitely affecting him in a negative way. All right, you guys. So without further ado, let's start looking at the games. This first round game between Foosley and erobb, two of the players who I felt are closest in range. They're very similar strengths, I feel, and I think it's important. Not important, but I thought that this was going to be the game that was most critical in the first day. I felt that the other two games would be more mismatch. Let's start taking a look at the game. So as most of you know, if you were watching my stream last night, I did a stream where I was coaching Foosley. I taught her the London system. I tried to do as much as I could because I knew she would have the white piece. I sent you a memo ride for the prime, and it worked out surprisingly well. So Foosley played d4. erobb played d5. She played bishop f4. Knight f6, e3, following the plan that I laid out for her. Rigged. Yeah, you know, if I didn't know better, honestly, the way that game went for Foosley, that felt like that would have been like, honestly, would have felt like WWE or something, or the Rajler, because it literally went as perfect as you could ask for Foosley in terms of the first game. So all right, so e3 was played, c5 was played, now c3 was played. Where's the VOD? erobb was annoyed because I laughed at the checkmate. It was nothing personal directed at him, but I understand he was very upset, and so I do feel like I need to put that out there. Thank you to Harrison Miller for the prime. But I know Papa Plata really likes you and would appreciate your coaching. If I have time, I can try to do something with him. But again, it's very hard. Sort of flying by the seat of my pants, trying to do what I can on every single day. It's not super easy. So yeah. All right, you guys. XQC checkmate that dude. Yes, go XQC. That's fantastic to see. Hopefully that improves his mood. Anyway, let's keep going with the analysis. Okay, so Foosley follows the strategy, tries to build the hat here, which is what she wants to do. erobb goes knight c6. She plays knight f3. Kind of a surprise. I mean, I did tell her to build the hat first. I thought it was a very general idea that makes sense. So she plays knight f3, queen b6, and now I was very happy that this idea that erobb played clearly was preparation. Thank you to Gatto for the 2 months. Thank you to Foosley for the tier 1. Thank you so much for the sub, Foosley. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a great stream. Congrats on the win today. Absolutely fantastic. Oh, did Foosley end her stream, or is she literally watching me on stream? I think she's actually watching me on stream. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so I was very pleased because it was clear that erobb played something to try and throw her off. And as I said yesterday, I haven't worked with all the players, so I mean, this is not a broad statement, but out of all the players that I have worked with, she is the one player who has demonstrated the best sort of understanding on the fly of understanding what I'm saying in terms of the strategy, because this order was completely different. But she played the b3 move. And one thing I've noticed with a lot of streamers that I've worked with is that if I go like, I'm just going to do this is a little bit dank, but let me say I go back and I'm like, okay, show me how you're going to play. And it's like, okay, show me what you're going to do. And then like I do something random, like, you know, like this and this. Very often the players, because it's not the same set sequence, they'll get confused and they'll panic and they'll play a move that is bad and sort of out of sync with what they want to do. Thank you to A Lefty for the prime. And when that happens, they tend to panic. They don't play the right move. And in this case, I did show Foosley to play b3 and c3 against this move, even though originally, if you watch the VOD, I originally was going to tell her to play knight c3. But fortunately, I came to my senses and I realized, you know what? This could happen in many different orders, and if it does, you can still play this move and play c3. And while objectively this is slightly suboptimal, unless you're a grandmaster, you're not going to understand how to capitalize on this. And so I tried to give her a very basic strategy, and to her credit in this game, she did play it anyway. She realized that she could still build the hat, put the pawn up, and bring the bishop to d3 next move. So I was very happy to see this because, again, the position was fraught with danger here. If she doesn't play this pawn move and stick to the original idea, she could end up in a lot of trouble immediately. So the fact that she played the fact that she played b3 here was very nice to see. And again, I'm pretty sure that if erobb had taken, she actually would have remembered to take with the e pawn, keep the pawns intact, capture this way, bring the bishop, castle the king, and play the knight forward to e5. The wooden hat, right? The wooden hat now. So erobb played c4, which I was actually kind of impressed by. Objectively, it's not the best move in the position because white can capture this pawn, but there is some risk that black can bring the queen down and attack the rook and attack the knight, and all this pawn is hanging as well. So I thought maybe this was a very clever idea by erobb's coach. I think it was the IM Hans Niemann who was preparing him. So I thought at first this was a very, very tricky idea, and I was extremely happy to see Foosley play knight to d2 because, again, like I've said, a lot of these people who are new to chess, what they're doing is when they see something they're not used to, they kind of panic and they play something where they don't know what to do. But Foosley seems better prepared, I guess. Maybe better prepared or more of a natural, maybe more natural with like memorization or puzzles or something along those lines, because she kind of ignored it and just stuck to the plan. She played knight d2 here, which is a fantastic move. Right? Yeah, she played knight bd2. erobb played e6. I guess he should have traded the pawn so he doesn't end up down one pawn. But nonetheless, it's the same thing. You're going to put the bishop here, castle the king, and get a very nice position. So she played here. erobb played e6. And now Foosley probably should have captured the pawn. But again, I really like the fact that she played knight e5 here. Good at following instruction. You could say it's instruction, but I think more than instruction, when you're on your own, being able to recognize the idea to play the same idea is important. I was really happy because this idea of putting the knight in the center, sure, the position is a little bit different, but the idea, like the fact that I really kind of hammered it home that she should put the knight in the center and try to reinforce it, it's clear that she was able to connect the dots, put 2 and 2 together, and sort of more or less follow the same strategy. So she plays knight e5. erobb played bishop d6, and now she took the pawn, which is a good move. There is a better move here that white can play, but I don't think, I wouldn't expect someone to see it necessarily, which is to play knight takes pawn. So what you do is you give up a knight here for 2 pawns. So you sacrifice the knight for 2 pawns, but you actually have a double attack on the queen and the bishop. And if black moves the queen, let's just say back here, you just take the bishop, The bishop guards the knight, and now you are +2 because you sacrificed 1 knight, but in return you got a knight and 2 pawns back for that. So this would have been a very nice tactical idea to see this capture, because if black takes the bishop, then you take the queen, and it's completely winning for white. But again, not a big deal. She took the pawn with the pawn, which is completely reasonable. It's +1. You're up by 1 pawn. So, oh, Box explained that to her. Yeah. So now erobb took. She took the bishop. Erobb went here. She played bishop to d3. And here erobb missed a big opportunity. He could have taken this pawn on e5 because he has 2 knights that guard. And if this happens, it's even material, and the game goes on. Very equal position, but erobb castled. And again, as I said, like I know it sounds like I'm being like I'm just praising endlessly, but I was very happy to see that that Fuslie played queen h5. Even if it's not the best move, it's sticking to the plan. It's following a plan that she saw in a different setup, with the pawn on e5 and with the bishops developed like this. So thank you to that kid for the prime. So I was very happy to see her following these plans and just sort of putting it together, because even though the position is different, she still internalized and remembered the ideas that she saw last night. So I was very happy to see this. And here erobb played queen to b2, blundering queen takes pawn, which is checkmate because the bishop guards the queen and the king cannot capture the queen. And with that, Foosley won the first game against erobb and jumps out to a commanding lead in Group A. She has 3 points. It's gonna be interesting what happens. I think I would say don't like quote me on this, and I know Foosley's watching, so this is not to add pressure, but I think Foosley has a reasonable chance of making the champions bracket and a chance of potentially making it to like the semifinals there, or even going to the finals. We will see, of course, but Foosley certainly is doing very well. And we will see Foosley versus VoyBoy in the final. That would be something else. But again, long way to go. Obviously, it's only 1 game. There are 2 more matches to be played. But I do think Foosley has a good chance. She has to play against VoyBoy, which is going to be very tough. But her other matches against NateHill, and I think based on the play I saw today, I think she should be the favorite. But that is going to be the critical match in Group A in terms of determining who will be the second player who gets in. I think for sure VoyBoy will make it in, but after that, Foosley is in very good shape right now to finish second in that group. So okay, so this was the first game. Again, big shout out to all the people who are competing. Again, not just the people that I've coached, but all the streamers who are competing. They are all exceptional people. They're all playing, not all, but most of them are playing chess for the first time, or they're very new to the game. So again, you know, no shaming. Obviously, erobb had a bad day, but he's got a long way to go. Hey, how's it going? NateHill in the chat too. Yeah, so big shout out to NateHill, the Fortnite streamer. He got unlucky. I mean, he had a very tough first match. He got paired against VoyBoy, who is probably the favorite of the tournament, someone who has played chess for a long time, someone who took lessons as a kid, played in tournaments competitively as a kid. So a very tough matchup, but he did play quite well. And I am going to go straight to that game since he is here. So let's move on to the next game. Let me pull it up. Okay, so I will pull up the next game between NateHill and VoyBoy the Genius. So in this game, NateHill had the white pieces, obviously relatively new to chess. And as I was doing the commentary, most of you I think were watching the commentary. When I asked Alexandra on stream what does NateHill play, she said e4, and I asked what does he do against c5, because I knew that VoyBoy is somebody who plays the Sicilian from past games that I've played against him on collaborations. And Alexandra had this horror look, like I don't know, I didn't show him what to do against it. So I was actually quite concerned in terms of what Nate would do against this opening. And I was very pleasantly surprised because he brought the knight out, which is a good development. VoyBoy played knight c6. And now he played this move, bishop to c4. I think this is completely fine to play in the event. It's not the most precise move, but again, you're following a straightforward path to developing your pieces. VoyBoy played d6. Yeah, those of you who are saying she didn't show the Sicilian defense, it's not really that shocking, because one thing I will say is that a lot of beginners are taught to play e4, e5. They're taught to play this opening, play symmetrically, because it's a lot easier. Thank you to VoyBoy for the 2 months. Thank you so much. Man, everybody's in the house. So a lot of beginner players are taught to play symmetrical, play like put the pawns in front of each other, just line them up the same way. So it's not shocking that she didn't have time to show him what to do against the Sicilian, because again, you really are expecting a lot of people to play like this. So knight f3, knight c6, he plays bishop c4. This is a reasonable move as well. Or whoops, sorry, wrong button. d6 played, castles, knight f6. Again, d3, very good move, opening up this line so you can bring the bishop into the game. You support the pawn, black cannot capture it. So now g6 was played, and this is where kind of it's tricky to explain to someone who's new to chess in terms of what they have to develop. But what should have happened here is that Nate should have pushed his pawn to h3 right away. And the point is that you stop this bishop from coming here. So if we go into the game, I'll go back to the line. After black brings the bishop out to g4 here, black has this very annoying pin on the queen and the knight. And when you get this sort of this idea where the bishop ties up this queen and the knight, normally what you want to do is you want to move the queen out of the way or bring a piece back. So I'm going to give you guys another example. Let me do a completely different opening. Ignore the moves. I know that like Nate is probably watching this, so I'm just going to give you guys an example. So just ignore what these moves are. They don't really matter. But I'm going to give you guys an example. So here's, or actually let me put the pawn back on d2. Let's go like this. Castles, bishop g4. So the moves here don't really matter, but what you see is that black creates this pin against this queen and this knight here. So usually when your opponent creates a pin against the knight and the queen, what you really want to do, the moves don't matter. I'm showing a concept. The moves do not matter at all. Is you kind of want to break this pin, because ideally you would somehow like to move this knight, or you would like to remove this bishop. So the concepts in terms of how you fight against a pin are, one way would be to bring this bishop back, so that now you can move the knight. Let's say black develops, you can always just move this knight out of the way, and if black captures, it's an even trade, a bishop for a bishop. So this is one way to break this pin towards the queen and the knight. So another way that you try to break a pin here would be to push this pawn up, attack the bishop, and if the bishop goes back, you can potentially push this pawn again to break the pin, and the bishop has to go back, and now there's nothing eyeing this diagonal towards your queen. So these are the two ways that you really want to try to break a pin. Now, if we go back to the game, what you will see here is that in this position, you don't really have this option. Like, you can't retreat the bishop to break the pin. And also, if you push this pawn, let me just make some random moves. Something like this. What happens is black actually can sack the knight, and you end up in a situation where the pin is still existing, and you still can't break it. And eventually, black is going to bring the knight and attack your knight and win the queen here on d1 if you don't do anything about it. So in this sort of situation where you've brought the bishop out and you have the bishop outside of these pawns and you don't have a way to break this pin, it's absolutely essential that you push this pawn here to stop this bishop coming to the square and pinning your knight to your queen. And to give you guys an example, since I think Nate is probably still watching, or he can watch the VOD later, is that if black castles the king here, then what white would do is this bishop is really good. So you're keeping an eye on this long diagonal towards the king. So the first thing you do is you push the pawn. Because what black would like to do is black would like to, if you just play a normal developing move, black would like to bring the knight out and trade the knight for the bishop, because this bishop is eyeing your king. Yeah, he's watching. So black wants to get rid of this bishop because it's a very nice piece. It's keeping an eye towards this king on this long diagonal. And so black wants to exchange. So the first thing you would do here is push a pawn. So now if black brings the knight out to try and make this exchange, the knight for the bishop, you can actually retreat the bishop back, and the bishop still keeps an eye on this long diagonal towards the black king. And the knight isn't really doing anything. It's on the side of the board, but there really is nothing to attack. So the knight is just out of play. So the first step would have been to play h3 and then a3. Now, because I think Nate is watching, I'll give you guys some examples. Normally, what black would like to play here is push his pawn to try and create some space on the queen side so he can develop the bishop the other way on this diagonal towards the white king, making a pocket for the sniper. Exactly. So white would probably drop the bishop back. Black is going to push the pawn. Again, trying to bring the bishop to attack here. And now the way that white plays this is this becomes a game sort of like, I don't know how to put it, of like snipers. Like, everybody's got good snipers here. This bishop is on this diagonal. Black wants this bishop on this one. and black has this bishop eyeing down towards your knight, your pawn, and your rook. So everybody has the good snipers here. So what you want to do is you want to sort of decide, if black has a good sniper here on this diagonal and black is going to get a good sniper on this diagonal, how do you get rid of the snipers? Because black's going to have 2 good snipers and white's only going to have 1 good one. So the way that you do it is, now you develop your bishop, black develops the bishop, and now you move the queen forward with the idea of moving your bishop here to offer this exchange of 1 set of bishops. So for example, let's say black brings the rook to the center, or to the square. Now you go here, and black can't actually avoid this exchange, because if you move the bishop, I'll take your rook, and a bishop is worth 3, a rook is worth 5. This is a very, very good exchange. And let's just say black plays, I don't know, like, what's the move? Like something like this to try and cut off your bishop. You exchange the bishops, and now you bring this rook to this side of the board. Long-term idea is basically you want to move this knight and start pushing your pawns in the center and use this bishop from very far distance to create attacks towards the black king, which is vulnerable here. So this would have been the ideal way for NateHill to have played the position. Obviously, as someone who's new to chess, there's no way that this can be expected, but I think that the one point to be made is that Nate should be aware of this idea of this pin, and being aware that if your bishop is like, if your bishop were here on this square, so let me just give you guys a random example. If you reach some position like this with the bishop on this square, this is not really a big deal, because you can always just trade the bishop for the knight. You can also move the knight. There's no threat towards your queen. So the important point is that if you're going to bring the bishop outside this pawn chain, where it's outside the pawns and it doesn't really protect the knight, you always have to be careful of this idea with the bishop coming down, and you can always just prevent it with a nice little move. And also this pawn push provides a square for your king much later on in the game. So if you reach a game, or not a game, but if you reach a position, let's go to this position. I'm going to give you guys an example. Let's say black pushes, white moves, black moves the rook here. You would think, okay, well, you can just take this bishop for free. But what happens is there's this move rook to a1, and this is a back rank checkmate because the king gets stuck behind the pawns, and the only way to prevent it is to give up your pieces. But again, your king still gets stuck behind these 3 pawns, and you get checkmated. So when we go back to the game, if you go back to this position, what this move does is not only does it prevent this move, but long term it gives you a square for your king. So 30 moves down the game, when you've exchanged pieces, you've traded off bishops and knights and so forth, there will never be a checkmate towards your king, because you will always have this extra square to move your king to.
We kept asking the devs to patch the op queen issue, but I think it's time to
2 moves in 1. Yeah, so I mean, what happens is when you play a move like this, you're like, it's like, you can tell your friends, like, you know, I saw this game was developing, and I knew that 30 moves down the road my king would be able to go to the square, and that's why I won the game. So yeah, thank you Sobex for the $5. But yeah, it's a dual purpose move. It stops this pin, but also it creates a square for your king and an end game many moves down the road. So this would have been best. So NateHill played queen e2, VoyBoy played bishop g4, and now Nate played bishop e3, a good move which stops this knight move to d4. The problem is black can move the knight here, and as I told Yasuo, who I did a lesson with a while ago, one thing that you really don't want is you don't want the structure where your king becomes open, where you have these 2 pawns which are stacked on top of each other, and then you have a 3rd pawn which is split. So for example, let me just make a couple of random moves here, just so you guys can see the formation. Now if you were to reach a position like this, you'll see that what you have is you have the pawns are kind of connected. They sort of support each other, you know, hand in hand in a way, because the pawns are right next to each other. But when we go back to the basic setup here, you'll see that what you have here is you have the pawn split. This pawn is not protecting the pawns. So you end up with these 2 pawns that are stuck, and they become a big weakness, and your king becomes very open. So you really don't want to get into this sort of position with your pawns where you have the 2 pawns that are stacked like this. So the correct move here, or the move that would have kept the game most interesting, was actually to break the pin. It's not an easy move to find, but it would be to move the queen up here, so that now the queen is not in the line of fire from the bishop. And now if black were to castle, or not even castle, but move the knight, for example, you just take. There's nothing on these squares. So you break the pin, and then you free up the knight to move wherever. And if black were to castle the king, you can just say, push the pawn, and you say, dude, where are you going? And if he takes, you just take back with the queen. Pawns are intact, your king is very safe, and you have the square for the king. So this would have been the right way to break the chain. H3 before queen e3. H3 would have been the best move before bishop g4, but after this move occurs, you would move the queen up, break the pin. If black trades, you take, keep the pawns intact. You don't end up with the pawns getting ending up with them being doubled one in front of the other. So this would have been best, but again, very tough move to find. He plays bishop e3, VoyBoy castles. Now NateHill plays bishop b5. Again, a reasonable move to be played. Queen b6, a4, a6, and this is where VoyBoy had to trade the bishop, or not VoyBoy, sorry, Nate had to trade the bishop for the knight. Just take, and then here he could have played h3, and you'll see what happens is now there isn't really much black can do. If black were to say move this bishop back, you can possibly trap the bishop, or you can also move your bishop here with the idea of removing the knight and then trapping the bishop next move. So you guys understand. Let's say black plays here. If you take and you play this move, the bishop gets trapped. The bishop has no squares, and if he captures, you take the bishop for one pawn, and a bishop for a pawn is a great exchange. You're +2, bishop's worth 3, pawns are worth 1. So this would be a great exchange if you can have it happen. So this would have been very critical. And the one other thing I would say is I think Alexandra was telling Nate that, you know, the bishop pair is very important. I would actually make the argument that if you're starting out and you're very new to chess, what you want to do is not think in those terms. You want to think in the terms of bishops and knights are equal, and just make the exchange, trade the bishop for the knight if you have to. Don't worry about these very deep positional ideas, because in most cases they are not going to occur. And I will give you guys another example. So here black could try to get really cute and play queen takes pawn, and you'll notice that in this position the knight is under attack, but the bishop is also under attack, so black is ahead by one pawn. But what you do here is you now would sidestep, move the queen, protect this knight, and when black captures the bishop, you use this very nasty move, rook to b1, and the black queen, sorry, gets trapped because you can't go to these two squares. You can't go back, because then I just eat it with my rook, and if you take the rook, I take back. So you end up losing a queen for one rook, and this is actually winning for white here. So that's why this would have been the right idea. Unfortunately, after a5, black can take the pawn, and now the position kind of just falls apart right away. You can maybe move the bishop back to a4, but now black will capture the pawn. You're behind by 2 pawns, and you don't really have active pieces, so it's already pretty much gone here. Nate played knight d5. They traded. There isn't much more that I will go over in this game. I'm just going to add a couple of quick things. So he blunders this whole thing, but the one thing that I was impressed by was, even when he got to this point and Nate was of course completely lost, down a rook, down some pawns, was that he still found moves that I don't consider to be intuitive as beginners, specifically this knight d2 move. And the reason I say it is, okay, you just say, well, it's just a normal move. But most of the streamers who I've done coaching with who are relatively new to the game, they have trouble seeing things like, for example, moving the bishop backwards or retreating the knight so you can put it on better squares. And so I was very happy to see that Nate actually saw this move, because even though if objectively it doesn't change anything in the position, it's not a move that I would expect a beginner to see. And it tells me that he does have the potential to see these sort of maneuvers with knights and bishops in a game where there is even material and both sides have chances. So b5, he traded, went rook here. VoyBoy trades the rook, but even here I was very impressed, like playing knight b3 to attack the bishop, put pressure on the pawn, and also even here playing bishop g5 to attack the pawn. After king f8, there's not much more that needs to be added to the game, but I was impressed that even when it was bad, Nate was still finding moves to try and attack the pieces and keep the game going and trying to do stuff. Obviously it didn't make a difference because the opponent he was playing against, VoyBoy, is simply way too strong. Just a bit of a mismatch. But again, there are still 2 more games, and I do think Nate has a chance. I think his match against erobb will be very, very close, and I think his match against Foosley has the potential to be very close as well. So he played the top seed, he lost, but he will have 2 more games in the group stage, and even after that, he will be playing in either consolation bracket or the championship bracket, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So certainly very good showing by Nate, getting to move 10 without ending in trouble. I think just the main thing you should remember is if he's going to play these setups where he develops the bishop and the knight and it's outside these pawns, be aware of these ideas with this pin on the knight and the queen. What time constraints? They are playing 10 minutes with 5-second increment. That is the time control of the games. So, all right, let's take a look at the third game. Let me, who was it? It was Hutch against moistCr1tikal. Well, I don't know the exact username. VoyBoy way too strong. Also Hikaru 2800. That's not a real opponent. Yeah, I was very impressed by what Nate did. I thought the general coordination, general understanding of pieces, despite the fact that he had never seen this setup, was very good. Bringing out the knight, bringing out the bishop, castling the king, was very, very good stuff to see for someone who's never really seen this opening setup. Like, most people would just panic. They'd be like, uh-oh, the guy's developing. Like, what do I do? I've never seen, you know, black puts these pawns on these squares. What to do? And the fact that Nate was able to still develop pieces, play very natural looking moves, and get out of the opening with a pretty decent position was a very good sign. And it's going to matter a lot more in the next two matches when he plays against people who are around his own rating. So big shout out to NateHill. If you are unfamiliar with him, he is a professional Fortnite streamer. I actually, one thing I would add as well is when he was on doing the interview, and this doesn't just apply to Nate, but seeing him come on and sort of talk, and he seemed actually a little bit emotional. He's talking about like streaming Fortnite, you know, getting people to watch, just streaming every day, the grind of you know, being successful as a streamer. I think it really hits home, and just seeing all these people from all these different backgrounds, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's chess, whether they do just general variety, seeing the fact that everyone comes from this different backgrounds, and you know, it takes all this hard work, and everyone really is just enjoying it, doing what they can to promote whatever game they play. It is really, really inspiring. So big shout out to Nate, and all the best in the coming rounds. If I do have time and he wants like an hour to go over some stuff, I will be available for sure. So just let me know if you want something. But great performance today for someone who's new to the game, and you were outmatched, but definitely a good start. Seeing some of the basics, and just congrats on putting in a good performance. Nothing to be disappointed in, really, considering that you were playing against the top seed. So congrats on playing a very good game. All right, you guys. So on that note, I think I'm going to move on to look at the third game, which also, by the way, was quite close. And I think this is one thing that I really like, is all these matchups. A couple of people were outmatched. Like NateHill was outmatched by VoyBoy, and then of course Charlie was completely overmatched by Hutch as well. But the fact that the games did not end, and like the games were not over after 10 moves, I think speaks volumes to the fact of how smart these streamers are in terms of understanding the basics, as well as the lessons that the coaches have been giving to them, because you really don't want games ending in like 4 or 5 moves. You don't want people getting cheesed at the very start. And the fact that you're seeing games progress past the first couple of moves with no one having a clear advantage, it's a very, very good sign. Okay, so let's pull up the game between Hutch and moistCr1tikal. I will look at this from the white side. Thank you to Mr. Bluebird for the tier 1. So d4, knight f6. Sorry, Hutch played another game. Sorry, he played a game after his game ended. Sorry, 1 second. I think this is his name, isn't it? Or wait, no, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not his name. Did he play on a different account? 1 second. Let me ask somebody. Or actually, no, it's what is Charlie's account? It's Turbo Fisto, right? Okay, I'll do it the other way. Right, so Hutch actually played on a different account today. He played on the account. Wait, no, sorry, everybody's playing more games. Sorry, 1 second. Everybody's not playing the one game and stopping. Everyone's continuing to play chess. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so clearly everybody actually just keep playing. They just keep playing. Which is also amazing. Like, you see, like, I had some concerns that the people who are playing, they'd be like, you know, if they lose the game, it's like, you know, whatever, like, enough of this, I'm gonna go do something else. And the fact that, like, you see Charlie continuing to play, he's played already, like, how many games has he played? He's played how many games has he played? He's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's played 5 games since he played the game against Hutch. So the fact that he's played 5 games since then just shows like how much these guys love the game, and how much fun they're having, as opposed to being like, this game is just like, you know, they just get discouraged and don't want to do anything with it. So it's really, really great to see. All right, let's keep going. So this opening was e4, e5. Hutch is a very classical player, playing a lot of very sort of classic openings. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. Charlie is not happy because I said XQC was better. I think I said that I thought he was better if in like some overall matchup. But again, I think right now the lack of actual lessons, the fact that XQC hasn't taken lessons might be impediment in terms of his performance in this event. if we look forward. 57k watching chess at this moment, despite the stream only having 8.4k viewers. Yeah, I think it's amazing to see everybody is watching chess. It's really fantastic. I mean, I see Foosley's playing chess, Box, NateHill is playing earlier, VoyBoy's been playing a lot of chess on stream. It's just it's really great to see. So okay, knight c3 is played. Now knight f6, and this is a very classic setup. Both players develop their knights, and the pawns are in the center, and they're guarded by the respective knights. So this is considered the 4 knights opening because both players bring out their knights. Of course, 2 plus 2 equals 4. So here Charlie played a weird move. He played d3. Probably what he should have played was bringing out the bishop to like b5 or bringing out the bishop first. And again, this is very similar, different sort of positional setup, but you do the same thing. Bring the bishop outside the pawn chain, activate the bishop, and castle the king. And so here, this is a perfect example, you guys. Let's say we play the mirror. What do you want to do? Both players don't want to allow this pin. So the way you prevent the pin is you push this pawn and prevent the bishop from coming to this g4 square. So, okay, so let's keep going. So Charlie plays d3. Hutch plays bishop c5, activating the bishop, targeting this pawn on f2. Charlie goes bishop g5, trying to create the pin right away. And this is where you'll see the players who are better and have had more experience, they know exactly what to do against the pin. It's not as deadly or as effective. Please raise my microphone volume. I think it's pretty good right now, actually. So let me just make sure. Okay, so here Hutch plays h6. Again, trying to get rid of this pin of the bishop on the knight and the queen. And if white goes bishop h4, the way you break the pin is you push this pawn and attack the bishop when the bishop comes back to attack this pawn. Black just pushes the pawn, solidifies everything in the center, and now black will play for this pin against your queen and your knight here. So this is one of the things, like the more advanced you become, the more you understand how to avoid falling into these tricks. So bishop takes f6, queen f6, and here Charlie played knight b5. One thing, and this applies, I think, to everybody in the tournament, is you want to play, if you have knights on the board, unless you're going to win a lot of material right away, you almost always want your knights in the center of the board. You don't want to play towards the edge. So moves like knight a4, knight b5 are kind of not to be recommended because you're moving away. You're moving off towards the side of the board instead of playing in the center of this board. And the center specifically being this D line and this E line with the king and the queen. So after queen f6, what Charlie should have played is he should have played knight to d5. Put the knight in the center, attack the queen, but also attack this pawn at the same time. So he goes knight b5. Hutch plays bishop b6. c4 is played, a6, knight c3. And here Hutch actually makes a mistake. He castles the king. Commentate harder. Exactly. So what he should have done here was actually just move the queen so that when the knight comes up, you can just retreat the sniper and the bishop just stays alive, and it always keeps an eye on this pawn at f2 from very long distance. So Hutch castles, knight d5, queen e6, and what you'll see here is now white is able to trade the knight for the bishop, and black ends up with these very ugly pawns which are not supported at all. They're very, very weak. These are called double isolated, or not double isolated, but these are just isolated double pawns. Think of Troblems for the tier 1. So d4, trade, and here Hutch misses a win with queen takes pawn. This would have been winning for Hutch. Instead he trades, and now when we reach this position, you'll start to see the real problem here. And this is why pawn structures are very, very important here, because here black's pawns are cut. So what you would like ideally is, to give you an example, let's just say, I'll just make some random moves. Let's say you reach some position like this. Look at these 3 pawns. The pawn formation is very solid. Everything is connected, and you're in very good shape. So when we go back, you'll notice the pawns are unconnected. The pawns are split. They can't sort of protect each other in a nice way because they're split by one line. There's nothing on this line to support the pawn or to support a pawn push. So that's why when you get these pawns, they're really, really ugly because they're just under attack permanently since you can't reconnect the pawn structure and get them all together. So rook e8 is played. Now Charlie castles. Hutch takes. They trade the queens. And here you could argue white is down 1 pawn. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So black is up 1 pawn here, but the reason that this is actually fine for white is, again, the extra pawn is a double pawn, and when you have 2 pawns in a row, they don't really do a whole lot in terms of your development. And so now when black goes back, you'll notice that white can actually drop the bishop, and black has a huge problem developing this rook and the bishop because the bishop is kind of stuck behind these pawns. You can't bring it out on this diagonal, and you can't bring it out on this diagonal. So if you can't do that, then your rook is also stuck here because it can't come to the center part of the board. So category is wrong. Okay, good one. So at this point, basically black is okay, but he's really not better here because white can just develop with the rooks, and the pieces are not coming into the game.
You might need to do some more XQC coaching after this.
Look, as I've said before on the XQC topic, if he wants help, he'll message me. That's what I'm going to say. Thank you, GW1337, for the prime. So unfortunately here, Charlie plays f3, rook e5, and now he blunders bishop e2, and after rook takes e2, the game is pretty much over. I did go over the erobb game. That was the first game that I went over. We're looking at the 3 games from Pogchamps today. There will be 2 more games tomorrow, and then 3 games on Sunday as well. So rook takes e2. And at this point, Hutch, being a 1400 ranked player, being up to 1 bishop is just a little bit too much. And it was not a misclick. He just blundered. And unfortunately, there really isn't a need to look at the rest of the game because basically the only issue here for black is being able to bring this bishop and bring the rook into the game. And Hutch plays b5. G4, and now rook e6. Very good move. And what you'll see is if the rook moves, now black can push the pawn, bishop comes in, and then your rook comes in. So really the only issue here is that black's bishop is stuck behind these pawns, so you can't really bring the bishop and the rook into the game. So once Hutch goes rook e6, rook d1, trade takes, it's just basically over because when you only have 1 rook on the board, you can't really checkmate the king. So I'm not going to go over the rest of the game because Hutch didn't really make any mistakes. It was just a very, very clean win he played very good moves for the rest of the game. But I thought it was a very good performance by Charlie to get out of the opening, actually have some chances to possibly cause a big upset in the first round game. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but he still played quite well. He developed the pieces, and I think if anything, it might bode a little bit badly for Hutch in terms of going forward, simply because he did not beat one of the weaker players in a clean manner of speaking. He got into some trouble, had to find some moves, and it didn't feel like a smooth victory in the way that you would kind of expect when there was a 700-point rating difference. So that's the only thing I would say is I think possibly it could be a slight weakness perhaps for the people the other top guys who are looking at his games, and they might be salivating a little bit, saying, okay, he's showing a little bit of weakness. He might be vulnerable down the road. So anyway, those were the 3 games. So of course the 3 winners: Foosley beating erobb, VoyBoy beating NateHill, and then Hutch beating moistCr1tikal. VoyBoy spotted weakness. I know that like these league guys are they're really crazy. They really are the mental part of it is really insane. VoyBoy and Box specifically, they're just like eyeing their opponents from a distance. They're just looking at all these games really, really closely, and not sure if that's just a league specific thing or what it is, but they're they're just really like keeping an eye on everybody and just paying attention. Thank you to Anonymous for the 5 gifted. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Am I going to be coaching Foosley to take down VoyBoy? I assume she's going to want coaching since she had such a rocking first round victory. So probably I will probably help her in terms of preparation. But I think the preparation that's going to be really important is the preparation for her 3rd game against does she play Nate? I think she does play Nate. So I don't know how I'll do it or what I'll do, because obviously I do want to, if Nate wants coaching, I'll help him. Again, I think the main thing in terms of helping people if they play in the same group is it's very important that what you show them is different, because you don't want someone feeling like, let's say you show them the same opening, and actually I'll give you guys an example specifically. So she says that I won't coach her again because of yesterday. Sorry, what? I assume that you're trolling. So I'll give you guys an example. One of the most basic things, and I've said this on stream too, is what you want to do is you want to develop your pieces. So very often what you'll tell beginners is play the Italian opening, because you get the bishop out. It's a very easy opening. You develop your pieces very quickly. So So what I was going to say in terms of this is that it's a very easy opening to prepare for both players. But when you have people in the event who are playing against each other, you don't really want to do that because there is the chance that you'll end up coaching one player a little bit better. You show someone one or two more moves than you show the other person, and it can lead to a bad situation with bad feelings. So what I've been doing, especially like with Forsen, I saw what he likes. He likes to play gambits. So I'm working on the gambits with him instead of something that I'm going to show to everybody else. No one else in the tournament is going to play the Latvian gambit or play the Budapest gambit. I'll watch some clips, so don't worry. So that's why I'm trying to show everybody slightly different openings so that there is never an issue like this occurring. All right, so yeah, so that's what I would say in terms of coaching. And if Nate wants time, I'll coach him. I don't know what Nate's been doing in terms of opening preparation. Again, if Foosley wants preparation, I will be willing to help, but I will not intrude. If there are people who've been working with certain coaches and they want to keep working with other coaches, that's completely fine. It's everyone can do what they want to do for sure. So okay, so what else was I going to say? So I'm going to be doing some coaching with Ludwig tomorrow. I think I'm actually going to extend an olive branch to erobb, and I think I will actually offer to help him out if he does want some help, because I do feel bad about today. So yeah, so that's what I would say. If he wants some coaching, I am more than willing to help him out and give him some of my time. All right, you guys. On that note, let's take a look. I think I have the matches for tomorrow, or I'll just tell you what the matches are. So matches tomorrow are going to be, I think it's Nim against Slicker is the first match at, I believe, 4 p.m. Eastern. What do I feel bad about? I guess I feel bad that you know, I was laughing at the end of his game. I was not laughing at him, but I was laughing, and he was upset. He felt like I was laughing at him. So it's completely understandable. I totally understand, but that was not the intention, as I said before. And again, I do feel very bad. If someone is playing this, like, you don't want people to feel bad. The number one thing that I will stress more and more is that people are having fun, that they are not upset, like, with what happens. So, you know, if someone's upset and they're feeling like, you know, you're making fun of them, that's not what we want out of this. You want everybody to be having a good time. So if erobb does want, I mean, if he does want some coaching, I'm more than willing to, because I do feel bad about this. He was joking. Okay. Well, anyway, how come you teach all the girls of London and all the boys the bong cloud? Good one, chat. Oh, he said he wasn't upset. Okay, it's just banter. Okay, well that's good. I mean, I really, like, I felt bad for him because I think he's certainly a good player, and he's just a little bit unfortunate that literally what I showed Foosley last night worked. But I will add one thing though about that first game. One thing I will add that's important, and this is why, like, when you look at my lessons, it's like, you know, it's like, oh, you keep saying follow the plan, all this nonsense. Just keep follow the plan. La 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 la. And the reason I do say that, and I think it's very important, I can't stress it enough, is because, for example, what erobb played against Foosley, I don't remember the exact order of moves. I think this was the order. So, for example, when erobb played queen to b6, this is a move that you're playing for a very quick attack on the pawn. But the problem with doing this is that if your opponent just has like one or two good moves, your opponent follows their plan, and you're already left feeling uncomfortable because you sort of violated the opening principle by bringing the queen out at the very start of the game. And so what happens is then, if your opponent knows what to do, it's like, well, okay, I brought the queen. How do I follow? What is my plan? And it's not so clear what your plan is here with black, whereas with white, you just make the hat, you bring the knight, and you castle the king, and it's very straightforward. So I think it's important that whoever is coaching, that you give them fundamentally sound ideas where even if they're not completely sure what the move is, they can still follow a plan and just get to a position where they get to play the game rather than ending up in trouble right away. So that's what I would say, is that I think it's very important that what we teach them is something that it makes sense, it flows. It's not something where you give them one move and then they're like, uh-oh, what am I doing? I don't know what to do. Like, I brought my queen out. I wasn't supposed to do that. How do I develop? What am I doing? And I think just too much stuff goes you just had too many thoughts going through your head because as a new player, you're not really sure what you're doing. And so then you just get confused. And when you're confused, bad stuff happens. It's easy. Just make the hat. Exactly, you guys. Anyway, very, 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 A very, very impressive win by Foosley. Again, the bracket is not over. NateHill has a chance. He plays Foosley and erobb. So he plays the two people who are not the clear favorite in this event. So a lot going on. Talk about the interview. As we know, Charlie, he's into his own little thing. So I mean, more power to him. People like the content. So I have no issue with him doing it. I personally, like, obviously I'm a little bit too squeaky clean for that stuff, but hey, it's all good. It's a free country. You're allowed to do what you want to do.